Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Allison's Corner. With me, I have a very special guest. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Britney Branch, and I am the founder and CEO of the Boss Up Agency, as well as a content creator.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Brittany. I've been following you for a minute now on social media. I love your content that you put out, especially about entrepreneurship, mental health, all of those things. And one thing that I really love about your content is pretty much having the tenacity to just go after what it is that you want without listening to the voices surrounding you.
hmm
So, for Brittany as well as for everyone else, this episode is really about stepping into your own, creating your own life path and the journey that you want for yourself.
hmm
So, Brittany, are you ready?
I am, and I just want to say thank you so much for having me and sharing this space with me.
No problem. Thank you. All right, we're going to go into question number one. So, our first question is, what does creating life on your own terms mean to you?
With creating life on your own terms, I think that this could look different depending on whatever season that you're in. But for my current season, I feel like creating life on my own terms looks like having the autonomy to dive into the different things that really bring me joy and that I really want to push forward into my life. For me, this meant leaving corporate life once again and making sure that I step out on faith and creating a life that I will be happy to pass on, whether it be to my kids or just like leave as a legacy. And so just making sure that I'm creating spaces for things that I'm going to be proud of, and making sure that I'm fueling myself with projects that I know will be impactful not only to myself, but to my community. And so when I'm thinking about how my life is shaping out, I'm really thinking about all of those things and making sure that what I'm building is a legacy that I will be proud of.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Especially you being really emphasizing that you want to create a legacy that is important to you,
hmm
and to no one else. I really like that. Can you share a defining moment when you realized you wanted to take control of your own path in some way?
hmm I definitely feel like I've had several defining moments that have led, or several moments that have led to the defining moment. But I think the most powerful one that I've had to be in 2020. I think, like so many others, I was just kind of rethinking life, career, what is it that I really wanted for myself during that time. And during that time, I was working full time in beauty. So I was working full time in social media influencer marketing, living in New Jersey, working in New York. And then the pandemic hit. Earlier that year, I did kickstart my agency, The Boss Up, but it started off as me coaching entrepreneurs and influencers on how to brand themselves on social media. But by the time the pandemic hit, and then during the summer, right before my 27th birthday or my 28th birthday, um, I really thought to myself, okay, you told yourself that you were going to take the leap of faith and become a full time entrepreneur. You keep waiting for the right time. The time is now. There's never ever going to be a right time. There's never ever going to be a moment where you're just going to feel 100% sure. And in listening to, I think, a recent podcast episode, um, Stephen Bartlett's talked about how you just have to be 51% sure to take the leap. And so I was like, you know what? Like let me fulfill this promise to myself and let me just step out on faith to take the leap. And that was the one of the defining moments that I had where I stepped out on faith. I stepped right into entrepreneurship. I started taking on more clients. And during that time, so many other things started to take place and challenged me for the better. And I think that without that moment, I would not be here. I will not be where I am today. So I'm just very thankful for those moments.
Yeah, yeah. 2020 was definitely a year for all of us. I can also relate to that with my own journey in getting into what it is that I wanted. So I definitely feel you on that level.
Absolutely.
What were some of like your biggest challenges that you faced when you were starting out doing that?
Absolutely. So, one of my biggest challenges was mental health. I think
Mhm,
that being in a space, so just to paint the scene a little bit, when I stepped out into my entrepreneurship journey, I was moving into my first solo studio apartment for the first time. And I'm kind of like getting chills just like thinking about that space because I was so excited to decorate it, but also I felt so isolated in my journey because I
mhm,
wasn't able to go home and visit and travel in the ways that I usually would. And so I felt very isolated in my journey. It was me and my 400 square foot studio apartment working day in and day out to build my agency. And I really was faced with a lot of hard questions and a lot of things dealing with mental health. And so during that first official year of entrepreneurship, my grandmother passed away, my grandfather passed away, and my great grandmother passed away. And so I had three deaths in the family that spanned maybe 3 or 4 months to each other. And with that being said, it was me also managing a team of six during that time. And so in a corporate role, you're able to take time off, you're able to, schedule your PTO time, you're able to kind of take some time to grieve. As an entrepreneur, I didn't really feel like I had that outlet to grieve because my back was against the wall. The health of the company fully depended on me.
yeah.
So with that, I was really challenged of thinking, okay, how am I going to take time to myself and pour into myself in the ways that I need to in order to be healthy, not only physically and mentally, but then also have that health, physical and mental health, translate over into my business health. And so I
Mhm,
started to really think about different practices that I can implement into my daily life that meant journaling. I think during that time, I filled up maybe 6 to 8 journals, just like keeping that as a practice every day, regular movement, meditation. I was really, really focused on visualization meditations and just making sure that I stayed in alignment with my higher self and where I knew that I wanted to go. Prayer, just increasing my faith during that time. And so many practices led me out of such a dark space that I felt myself going into. And I think that without those practices, I would not have shifted my mission to the boss up to where it is now, which is making sure that we are helping entrepreneurs prioritize their mental health and well being, no matter what stage of the journey that they're in. Because I found that when an entrepreneur feels their well-being being taken care of mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, then they're
mhm.
also able to reap those benefits into their business health as well and have longevity there. And so the focus has really shifted there because of my own personal experiences.
Yeah, yeah. And my condolences on the loss of your loved ones. Yeah, I understand that was definitely a hard time.
Mhm.
Um, when we talk more about your personal journey, how
Mhm.
has your definition of success evolved throughout your process?
Yeah, I think success has changed for me in so many ways. And I think that it is changing for me even more as I've stepped into different roles, being a wife, one day being a mother, and just thinking about how much I value time now and not only time, but flexibility. I think that early on in my career, I really thought about the vanity metrics, right? So I want
Mhm,
to have X amount of followers. I want to have this much engagement. I want to have this much money. Um, and as I'm kind of researching and continuously teaching myself different things that are needed to live a happy and healthy life mentally and physically, I'm learning that the more money you make doesn't necessarily equate to more happiness, right? And I think that what we're really yearning for is time and with that time, the ability to create experiences with those people that we love or creating new experiences for ourselves, right? Excuse me. And so, as I'm thinking about that, success for me just means having the space and grace to be flexible with my time and to use it in a way that will bring me joy in the long run. I do have goals of doing other things. So, launching my productivity products for entrepreneurs, which I will be doing in a few weeks.
Mhm.
A book, which I will be launching in a few months. But having some of those goals in mind, I think not just for the vanity metrics or the amount of revenue that it will bring, but more so making sure that I am allowing myself to use my gifts and what God has intended me to do to serve in ways that feel in alignment with me. And so just making sure that I'm doing those things and making sure that they're fulfilling me and they're not just something that I feel like I have to do.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed also now being in my 30s, if
Mhm,
I do something that is passion driven, I reap the benefits so much more than if I pursue something that is profit driven, like how
mhm,
I did when I was in my 20s. The difference is crazy, and I realize the motivation and love that I have for it surpasses anything else that I still am able to get the materialistic things such as the money and all of that, but because I have a passion and I love what I do, it makes it so much easier in the long run for me. So yeah, I agree with you. I wanted to shift a little bit away from your personal journey, but
mhm,
really focus on your mindset, which
mhm.
you were speaking about earlier. So, what mindset shifts were necessary for you to step away from societal expectations or even traditional paths that we see every day?
I think with the mindset shifts, it really is a daily choice, right? And so it's not something that you're able to completely step away from. It's like something that you consciously have to make a decision about each day. Like, I will not allow myself to go down that rabbit hole that I feel myself going down. Um,
Yeah.
but I think one of the biggest mindset shifts, and as I've coached entrepreneurs, I felt them struggling with the same thing. It's the limiting beliefs. It is the stories that we tell ourselves. It is the negative self talk that we tell ourselves, maybe even subconsciously on a daily basis. And so I felt like for me, when you get caught up in all of these algorithms on Instagram, on TikTok, um, all of the vanity metrics, and maybe someone isn't engaging with your content the way they're engaging with another creators or another entrepreneurs. And now you're feeling like, okay, I feel like my content isn't good enough. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like no one likes me. I feel like, how am I, like, you just have all of these spiraling thoughts, right? And it really is the limiting beliefs that you are placing on yourselves. And I found that in those limiting beliefs, I was actually in a way self-sabotaging myself because I would have these spiraling limiting beliefs. I would create these narratives and these stories that I was not good enough or I was not capable to be at the level that some of these other entrepreneurs or creators were at. And then that would lead me into a crippling anxiety that would not allow me to execute in the ways that I needed to. Right. And I think that and it kind of continuing my research and learning like how can I combat this. I read in a book called The Big Leap that oftentimes when we're really going after something, we end up hitting this upper limit, right? And this upper limit could be where we're self-sabotaging ourselves to the point where, we're not able to reach the level of success that we really want to reach. And I think that through those limiting beliefs, that is what really like I needed to break through that. And I found that so many entrepreneurs struggle with the same thing. It's the stories we tell ourselves, and it's learning how can we quiet the mind so that we can really, really get after what it is that we want. And that I did create a productivity planner, and it's different from other planners because the first few pages are kind of like worksheets in a way where we're working through exercises on addressing what limiting beliefs you have. and then affirming, greatness into yourself before you even start the planning process, before you even start talking about your goals, because you have to diminish the negative self-talk first.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I really do. Um, on your journey or with your mindset so far, who or what inspires you to just keep pushing forward?
My inspiration comes from a lot of places, but I think mostly it comes from my family and from my husband. I think
Hmm.
it's so important to have people in your life to keep you grounded and people who can remind you of who you are and what you stand for. Um, and so when I'm feeling that way and I'm talking about it with either my husband or my parents or my brothers or my friends, they are quick to remind me who I am, and they are
Hmm.
quick to help me diminish any negative self talk that I have about myself. Also, my therapist too, right? She is quick to say, "Girl, like that is not like here are some tips that you need, or here are some exercises that you need to do to get yourself out of that mindset because you're telling yourself the wrong stories, right?" And so, I think having a community to really keep me grounded, it just really is really helpful because you get on social media and it's so loud,
Yeah.
and sometimes you get caught up in all the trends because you're trying to do what you feel like is working best for other people. But when you
Hmm.
sit back and talk to the people who know you best, and then also have conversations with yourself, right? Because ultimately you know yourself better than everyone else. And it really just get down to the root of like, who am I? Like, what do I want and what do I want to present to the world? I think that's when you can come back to center.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree. My therapist, he keeps me in check.
Yeah,
Always he clocks me every single time and I'm like, "Thank you so much, but that was mean."
I know that's
But we need it. We need a kick in the butt sometimes. So how do you prioritize your goals and make decisions that align with your vision?
that's such a great question. When it comes to my goals, I've really just thought about them as commitments to
Mm,
myself. So if I'm going to be committed to be disciplined, what does that look like? If I'm committed to being consistent, what does that look like? So I start there first. And then in our planner, we have where you can write out your goals. So we have it listed out by your macro and your micro goals. And so for the month, maybe what are the three big goals that you have on your plate versus what are three micro goals that can possibly help fuel the macro goals.
mhm.
And so as you list out your goal, you're also listing out the why and the how, right? Because I think that sometimes we lose the purpose of what we're striving for. And so when I'm answering those questions, like, why is this a goal? Why is it important? And how am I going to achieve it? Then I'm able to think more strategically about it and build systems that can bring it into fruition. And so I think when you're mapping out your goals, ask yourself why and how and when, right? Make it timely. So thinking about it as like a SMART goal in a way, but when do you want to achieve it by? Because sometimes we make goals and then we make it too loose, and then we look up and we're like, wait, I still haven't achieved that goal, right? And
Yeah.
so when you have purpose behind it, when you have strategy behind it, and when you have time, make it time bound, then you're able to actually see that goal through. And I think for me, as being a creative Gemini who just has so many ideas, I get bored so easily. I need to see it written out in that way.
Are you a May Gemini or a June Gemini?
I'm a June Gemini.
Oh my gosh. I'm an Aries and I always say either I with May Geminis I get along with no problem. June Geminis, it's either I do or I don't. So I get
Really?
along with you, girl. Yes.
Are you March?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
March. I'm in March
My
here.
dad's an Aries, and that's my BFF. So,
Okay, well maybe that's why you know how to interact. But yeah, but then again, my moon is in Gemini, so
okay.
okay, that's the whole thing. I don't know, but anywho,
Love it.
um, what role does resilience play in creating a life that feels authentic to you?
Mm, I think that it plays a huge role because there are so many things. that might come up that's not in alignment with what how you thought it would be,
Mhm.
and you have to be resilient to push through it, and you have to just kind of like chuck it off as being like a part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
So there are definitely a lot of roadblocks that might come up where I'm like, okay, like I was not expecting that to happen. Like, say, for instance, when I first went on my entrepreneurship journey, and I was not expecting to, maybe go through a breakup and have to move into this square foot apartment, and most of the money that I saved went towards my rent, right? And
Mhm.
so that was a point where I needed to be resilient and really push through that, and really just kind of focus on what the end goal is that I was trying to achieve. But I think resilience, if you can be resilient through your journey, then I think that you can show yourself that you are strong enough and you are capable to push through it.
Yeah. And how do you navigate those external pressures, whether it be family or friends having certain expectations of you, or even just like what we were talking about earlier with those societal norms that we always hear so much about?
Hmm. I think I just work on quieting the noise. And
Mhm.
so if I feel myself maybe getting sucked into what society is doing, or maybe like what my peers are doing in the industry, I just take a break. Like, I really just disconnect from social media. I set some digital boundaries, not only with social media, but also with family and friends. And so
Mhm.
if I'm feeling like I'm at capacity, or I'm not able to talk, or I'm not able to be there in the ways that you need me to be there, then I just make sure that I set those digital boundaries early on,
Yeah.
so you can know where I'm at, and I will meet you where you're at when I'm able to. And I think that early on in my entrepreneurship journey, I saw the importance of setting those digital boundaries. And so, one practice that I started to do, because I felt like before 9 a.m., or early in the morning, it was just feeling real hectic. I was just like, people are calling me, people are texting me, clients are slacking me. I can't, right? And so I just set a digital boundary like before 9 a.m. Y'all not hearing from me. I'm sorry. Like, I am going to use this time to ease into my morning, to take care of myself, to pull from my buckets of joy, whether that be journaling, reading my book, or whatever it is. Before 9 a.m., that's my time.
Yeah.
So everything else is going to be on Do Not Disturb so that I can focus on pouring into myself. And I think that that really helped me get into a good headspace as well.
Yeah, I love that, easing into the morning instead
Yes.
of just running through it. No, I love that. I need to set that for myself as well.
Look, girl,
Um,
gone are the days of chaos, okay?
I can't. It's like I'm trying to catch up as soon as I wake up, and it's crazy. I'm like, no, we kind of need to dial it back. I need to just have time to just ease into the morning, like you said, like just yeah, instead of rush. So I need to try that for myself. That's gonna be a good tip.
Yes.
So, like, what advice would you give to someone who kind of feels stuck in life because where they're at doesn't feel authentic to them?
Mm, you are hitting with the good questions. Uh, So I actually am working on a workbook that is for this specific thing. It's called
Mhm.
the Unstuck workbook, right? Um, because I've been there, and I really felt like in the beginning, specifically talking about my journey as a content creator, I started off in fashion and beauty like so many others, and as I reached the pandemic and I was asking myself those reflective questions, I was just like, I don't feel in alignment with this.
Mhm.
I don't wear makeup every day. I'm like kind of basic on the outfits. I'm not trying to grow my brand as being this beauty or fashion guru. I really
Yeah.
want to get down to like the nitty gritty, and I want to have conversations. I want to talk about mental health. I want to talk about well-being. I want to talk about these things. And I think that for so long I was in my head about like how do I pivot? Um, how do I how do I switch up without shocking my audience or the nervousness behind losing people. And I think that naturally, when you make any shift or when you decide to speak out on some of your beliefs, like mine being my faith, right? You're naturally going to lose people. But I think that you can't be tied to that. You have to detach from that because you're going to gain so many people that are going to be happy to be a part of your community, right? And so if you're feeling stuck and like you don't know where to go, I would say ask yourself some reflective questions. Maybe one of those questions could be when you sit down and do a visualization meditation, what are the glimpses of your life that you see, right?
Mhm.
One of the questions that I asked on my retreat that I had back in October was think back to a time where you felt the most joy and what were you doing during that time. One of my friends, she thought back to that time and she was like, you know, when I felt the most joy, it was when I was baking, when I was cooking, when I was kind of using my hands and being creative in that way. And so she's gotten back into that hobby and she's, you know, felt more joy and fulfillment in doing that because she's doing something for herself, right? And I think that when you kind of sit with yourself and ask yourself those reflective questions, you get deeper, you get closer to what it is that you actually want to do and who you actually want to be. Because I think that so much of the time we're allowing social media to kind of define who we are when really it might not even be what we want to do. So you have to really sit with yourself and ask yourself some deep questions because social media would be quick to tell you who you should be, but it's
Yep.
you to
True.
define who you want to be.
Yeah, yeah. How can they start small when working towards living on their own terms? Do you have any advice for that?
Mm. I think that when it comes to living on your own terms, I think just do a mind map. And so I kind of just love to do this mind mapping exercise, maybe like once a quarter, where I'm kind of redefining, okay, who am I? What are the branches that stem off of me? What is it that I want to do? What do I want to create? And I'm going based off of that. And so I would definitely say sit with yourself, do a mind mapping exercise to understand where is it you're trying to go, and just allow yourself to tackle that piece by piece. Like you don't
Mhm.
have to tackle it all at once, but just allow yourself to tackle it piece by piece and just see what it is that how you're being led in that way. I think when we try to tackle things in a bigger way, it feels overwhelming, and then we feel stuck again, right? Because this is
Yeah.
so daunting. But I think if you can take it piece by piece, then you can really feel like you're making bigger steps towards where you want to be.
Oh, I love that. And just some reflective questions. Looking back, what is something that you would tell your younger self when you first started this journey?
I would definitely tell myself to take my time. I think that sometimes you start something and you want to hurry up and see like the results and you want to hurry up and, you know, get everything together, do all the fun stuff, do all the
Yeah.
branding, all of those things and you kind of want to rush through the process. But I think there's so much power in taking your time because when you rush through something, you're more likely to feel the burnout, the stress, and the overwhelm of it all. And I found that when I take my time, even if it's taking me a little bit longer to get there, I think that I feel so much fulfillment.
Yeah.
Also, it aids to my overarching goal, which is longevity, right? Like, I don't want to be burnt out while building something. I want to be at ease while I'm building it and feel excited and happy about it and be able to feel all the feelings in that process. And I want to make sure that I'm building something that's going to last. And so just take your time. Like there's no rush. Don't let anyone pressure you into feeling like you have to have it all figured out in this
Mhm.
time. Like go with what you have and just let that be it for now. You can always evolve or reinvent things, rebrand things as you go, but just take your time and be intentional and mindful in that.
Mm. And my very last question: how has living life on your own terms changed you as a person?
Oh, it has been such a confidence boost in so many ways. I think that living life on my own terms has allowed me to build my confidence and know that I am capable of um, reaching my goals and dreams without having someone tell me what my cap is. And I
Yeah.
think in corporate, I really struggled with, someone telling me, oh, like, yeah, you're not ready to get a promotion right now. Or actually, you can't take that PTO. Or, just trying to put a ceiling on top of me. And some of those ceilings come from, corporate policies, but some of it I actually found comes from their own personal beliefs and experiences that they're trying to pass on to you, right? And I think that allowing myself to live on my own terms has allowed me to move that ceiling out the way and to just reach for the stars and not allow anyone to cap me. And definitely being conscious of not capping myself in any
Yeah.
ways, like the self sabotage, right? So that has been such a big learning for me.
Well, thank you so, so, so much for joining us, Brittany. I really, really loved our conversation. I feel like I learned so much about you, and even just hearing you speak, a lot of it is just very reminiscent about me and my own journey as well. So I just want to thank you for coming on because I know if I needed to hear it, somebody else also needed to hear it as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Allison.
No problem. And before you go, tell the people, tell them where they can find you, list all the, so give it all out, girl.
Yes, so you can find me over on Instagram and TikTok at it's Brittany Nicole underscore. You can also find the boss up at thebossupagency.com or the boss up agency on Instagram. And then if you want to join our community, you can find that at the Mindful Boss Club on Instagram. So those are all of our platforms.
Awesome. Thank you again, Brittany. And for those of you who are listening, God bless. Have an amazing day. And thank you for listening to Allison's Corner.